Each place in America has its own distinct sound, its own musical voice. Go where the music takes you with Expedia. It's everything you need to go.
When I grow up, I want to make my own songs.
A single note can inspire dreams.
I would like to play a tuba. I want to hear beats all around my life. I like to play drums. I play the guitar. Music makes me feel joyful.
America. People came here from many places, each bringing a different note.
Hello world, it's nice to meet you. I've been waiting for this moment to come my whole life.
When all of these notes collided, they exploded with creative energy.
It's time for us to come together and make the future right.
This fusion of cultures sparked a surge of creative freedom. Freedom to dance.
I had an epiphany one night, looking at the endless star-filled sky.
Freedom to try anything.
The world is ours. The world is ours.
When people were free to take risks, music had room to grow. Here, we could each sing our own song in our own voice.
7 billion stars. We're all we are. We're all we are. We're all we are. We're all we are. The world is ours. Hello world. The sun is rising.
America's cultural diversity has shaped all our songwriters, including Aloe Black, who grew up near Los Angeles.
Hello world, undivided. Don't matter if you win or lose, it's how you play the game. I had an epiphany one night, looking at the endless star-filled sky.
Aloe's parents moved here from Panama and brought their music with them.
I started recording when I was 15 years old, and we were making hip-hop music. And as we were sampling, I was being educated on these forms of music, like jazz and classical, rock, and folk. And today, I weave a lot of different styles of American music into the songs I write.
I'm hanging out now with an artist from Los Angeles.
I met Maya on her music talk show in Australia, and I'll never forget that moment.
Aloe Black.
The world is ours.
And today she's my wife, and we have 2 beautiful children. Maya's a rapper and a songwriter, and we just love the way that music brings us closer. Tomorrow I'm leaving on tour. Being away from Maya and the kids is the hardest thing I do. But going on tour is a great chance for me to learn new musical styles for my next album. Each city I go to has its own musical personality.
Alo's tour kicked off in New York City, the melting pot of American music.
I want to soak up all the different historical styles of American music and weave it all into my next album. New York became really important to me at about age 15, mainly because of hip-hop. Back in the 80s, a lot of kids didn't have money for instruments, so turntables became their instruments. And that's how hip-hop was born. And now everybody's listening to hip-hop. I mean, it's even re-energizing the Broadway musical.
Hip-hop was revolutionary. A century ago in New York, Harlem was swinging with another brand new musical revolution, jazz. As the pioneer of jazz, Louis Armstrong was the driving force who reshaped music in the 20th century.
No, no, they can't take that away from me. No, they can't take that away.
Armstrong became an American icon, beloved by millions around the world.
He's definitely one of my heroes. He lived in this New York house for 28 years. And now it's a museum.
When I finish this arm wrestling, I'm gonna teach you guys a little song from Louis Armstrong. Oh, he won. He's got a strong arm like Louis.
I work out.
Louis Armstrong is one of my favorites.
Louis Armstrong loved telling stories to kids. When he sang, he opened our eyes to the joy of simple things.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
That was my christening song.
That was your christening song? It's a beautiful song. And that's one of the...
This musical genius was the grandson of enslaved people. The work songs they sang in the fields were brought from Africa and gradually gave birth to a new form of music called the blues. It's those blue notes in the chords that tug at the heart. Louis Armstrong's grandmother sang those songs to him when he was a boy in New Orleans. In this city, all kinds of music spilled out onto the streets. Ragtime, gospel, Dixieland. Louis and his friends performed for handouts. But at 12 years old, he got arrested, which changed the course of music history. In reform school, Louis learned to play the trumpet, which set his prodigious talent free. Before Louis, music was more predictable. But by improvising, Louis created a spontaneous sound no one had ever heard before. It was called jazz, and it still pulses through New Orleans, where Alo's friend John Batiste grew up.
I think everything comes from Africa, and then the African stuff went to the Caribbean, and I see New Orleans as the northernmost point of the Caribbean.
As a music scholar from Juilliard, John is the best tour guide for New Orleans. He told me that jazz could only have been born in this city, where freedom of expression was welcome.
Life today is such a grind. Sometimes you think you're gonna lose your mind. If you take my advice, you'll find yourself a little piece of paradise. The sound of music like a holy choir.
These wedding parades come from an African tradition. Anyone can join in.
Don't matter if you're broke or a man of means. Everyone gets treated like kings and queens. And just come on down. Everybody knows it's easy here in New Orleans. Friendly people everywhere. Don't matter where you come from. They don't care. Come on down. It's easy here in New Orleans. In New Orleans.
Even after the dream of freedom came true for slaves in 1865, life here was harsh. So, searching for a better life, 6 million African Americans headed north. It was one of the largest migrations in human history. When he was only 17, Lewis kissed his mother and sister goodbye and joined this wave called the Great Migration.
You know what it means to miss New Orleans.
For the next 3 years, Lewis played and sang in a riverboat band. Now here I am, making the same journey 100 years later.
It's getting stronger the longer I stay away.
Almost 1 million descendants of enslaved people came to Chicago, including Lewis. And he brought with him a radically new kind of jazz. During the Roaring '20s, drinking alcohol was outlawed. Yet Chicago still had nightclubs popping up all over town. And they all played jazz. The people of the Great Migration brought more than just music. They brought an entire way of life, including that good old Southern cooking, which is still big here in Chicago. I can't wait to meet the legendary jazz pianist Ramsey Lewis. His parents came to Chicago during the Great Migration. But Ramsey met me at a barbecue joint where they grill the meat over mesquite wood from way down south.
Can't they just get wood from Chicago?
Wouldn't be the same. Would not be the same.
By the time he was 30, Ramsey's jazz song, The In Crowd, had become a massive hit.
In the 1920s, inspired by jazz, America was undergoing a social revolution, especially in Chicago, where couples of every race shared the dance floor. People felt free listening to Louis Armstrong. When he jumped off the printed sheet music and played from his heart, he turned jazz into a musical conversation. Lewis didn't seek the limelight, but when he married a successful singer, she insisted that he get top billing. His celebrity was soon growing far beyond Chicago. But even with all his fame, Armstrong and his band were not allowed to stay in the same hotels where they performed. They had to stay in rundown places or even sleep in their cars. But then, Lewis drew a line in the sand. If I can't stay in the hotel, I won't play in the hotel. The first black celebrity to take such a bold stand. He got his wish. With so much charisma, Louis was adored by all kinds of audiences. The power of music could change people's hearts. He had a profound impact on the city of Chicago and ultimately on the whole nation.
Without trailblazers like Louis, who knows where I'd be today? I'm making music on my own terms. I wrote a song about my good fortune called Wake Me Up. And that song is about to be used in a flash mob right here in Millennium Park. It'll be fun to hang with some complete strangers and see what they do with my song. They've only met each other online, but they have a plan. Practice the dance moves at home, then meet at a set time and place, and wait for a cue. Half the fun is just watching innocent bystanders.
Feeling my way through the darkness, guided by a beating heart. I can't tell where the journey will end, but I know where to start. So wake me up when it's all over, when I'm wiser and I'm older. All this time I was finding myself and I didn't know I was lost. So wake me up when it's all over, when I'm wiser and I'm older. All this time I was finding myself and I didn't know I was lost.
During the Jazz Age, the folks of Chicago could outdance anyone. Today, they've created a new dance called Chicago Footwork Style.
Wish that I could stay forever this young, not afraid to close my eyes. Life's a game made for everyone, and love is the prize. So wake me up when it's all over, when I'm wiser and I'm older. All this time I was finding myself, and I didn't know I was lost. Didn't know.
When we share a song we love with other people, it brings us closer. Every kind of music has that power. During the 1920s, while cities like Chicago were jumping with jazz, farm families were listening to something quite different.
Good morning, Captain.
Radio,
Good morning.
the internet of its day, made country music wildly popular.
Another mule skinner.
Today, Nashville, Tennessee is the capital of country music, which grew out of traditional music from Scotland, Ireland, and Africa.
My tour manager put me together with some of Nashville's top musicians, like Willow Osborne. At 17, she's mastered the banjo, an instrument brought from Africa. At the Country Music Hall of Fame, Willow and her mom showed me Elvis's Cadillac.
And you have your driver's license?
Barely, yes. I got it back in May.
All right, well, then you're old enough to drive this now. I have this idea for a song, so I've been writing this song called My Story. How can I add a little bit of harmony into this song? Being here with the ensemble, I might get a chance to work on the chorus, to do something that feels a little bit like Nashville, a little country.
By bending the note,
Wow.
the pedal steel guitar can change the pitch to create a blue note.
So
That's
like
great.
that.
The triplet was great.
This is my story. It's full of ups and downs. It's a true story. Good times and of sorrow. A brand new old story of yesterday and tomorrow. Thanks to those who laid the road before me and paved the way so I could tell.
The Fisk
my
Jubilee singers
story.
sing with the precision of a classically trained European choir. But others in the South created a more emotive style based on African roots. Gospel.
Oh, I decree, I declare it now. This is my city, yeah, my time, yeah. Oh, la, 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 no, no, no. It is mine. Yeah, I'm in the best, yeah. Man, the best. Oh, la, la, la. I am the head. Not the tail. Not beneath. Man, the best. Abraham. Yeah. Man, the best.
Gospel was emotional church music. It inspired one skinny white teenager whose music would soon shake up the world. I'm on my way to his home in Memphis, Tennessee. In the 50s, many white folks were listening to country music, while African Americans, especially on Beale Street, were rocking out to rhythm and blues. But in 1952, that skinny white teenager turned the place upside down. When he cut his first record here at Sun Studios, he set off a musical revolution called rock and roll.
Well, it's one for the money, two for the show, three to get ready. Now go, cat, go. But
By combining blues, gospel, and country, Elvis Presley made it cool to break the rules, which thrilled teenagers and drove grown-ups crazy.
Rock and roll has got to go, and go it does. That's the best way I know to get rid of them.
Elvis sparked the biggest musical revolution the world has ever known. I visited his home in Graceland. Now, he bought this place when he was just 22 years old for $100,000 in cash. For a kid who grew up dirt poor, this was quite a mansion. Elvis had a genius for blending musical styles. The only singer ever to become #1 in rock, country, and gospel. And that's why I'm here. My friend Keb Mo, a blues musician, took me to the Arcade Cafe. He told me that after cutting a new record, Elvis would come here for a milkshake and always sit in his favorite booth.
I like this.
Elvis passed away too young. But his millions of fans said that the spirit of Elvis would never end. And I found out that they were right.
Walking through a party in the county jail. The prison band was there and they began to play. The band was jumping and the drum began to swing. You should have heard this knocked out jailbird sing. Everybody, gotta get my kick, let's rock. Everybody, let's rock. Everybody knows everybody. We're dancing to the jailhouse rock.
Memphis has inspired a new form of dance, jukin. As a boy, Elvis sang in church and always kept a place in his heart for gospel. Just as Louis Armstrong used music to bring people together, Elvis did the same, but with a very different style. He set the stage for the massive cultural revolution of the 1960s that swept the whole world.
There will be peace in a valley. Oh.
That's the power of music.
Each city that I went to on my tour has its own distinct sound. Like in Detroit, where the Motown sound was king, I kept hearing Stevie Wonder and Marvin Gaye. And the voice of Seattle was Jimi Hendrix and Kurt Cobain. The singer on my mind in Austin, Texas was Willie Nelson. And in Minneapolis, St. Paul, I hear Prince with his funk and soul. And Las Vegas still carries the torch for Elvis. Lots of cities have new forms of music, like Miami, the last stop on my tour, where I get to soak up all of the music of my childhood. I love it. It's one big tropical playground where the fun and the water and the music are all just part of life.
Yo no tengo un lugar que ya me cansa, o guardé mi corazón. Caballero, llegó el momento.
Since my parents are from Panama, the music in our home was a wild blend of reggae and soca, plus salsa and cumbia and merengue from all across Central and South America. I'm here to meet a legend. She blended regional rhythms with music from her native land of Cuba. Gloria Estefan and her husband, Emilio.
You know, our parents, thinking they were going back, it was incredibly important for them to keep our culture alive. My grandmother would smuggle my mom's record collection out of Cuba one by one, because she couldn't take anything with her.
And that's the struggle of immigration, so you came with nothing.
With nothing.
Gloria overcame her humble start to become America's all-time best-selling Latin singer.
Your professional opinion on how can I add a little bit of Miami flavor into this song?
We can do that.
Oh.
That we can do. Miami.
Oh, I can hear it already.
Yes.
Lattened out.
Can you hear it? You can hear where you
Oh,
put it?
yeah.
Round the road so I could tell my story. All right, I get it. Feels
Yeah.
good.
Oh, I'm already dancing salsa to that thing.
Come on, chicken body, baby, do that conga. No, you can't control yourself any longer. Come on, chicken body, baby, do that conga. No, you can't control yourself any longer.
No tune says Miami better than conga. the signature song from Gloria Estefan. Nearly 2 million Cubans now call Miami home. So the city now dances to a Cuban beat.
Come on, shake your body, baby, do that conga. No, you can't control yourself any longer. Feel the rhythm of the music getting stronger. Don't you fight it till you try to do that conga beat.
My parents joined me in Little Havana. This is their music.
Come on, shake your body, baby, do that conga. No, you can't control yourself any longer. Feel the rhythm of the music getting stronger. Don't you fight it till you try to do that conga beat.
At Ultrafest, you can feel the power of music bringing people together. Almost 200,000 young people from all over the globe gather here, united by their love of electronic music. The sense of community is intense.
Come on, shake your body, baby, do that conga. No, you can't control yourself any longer. Come on, shake your body, baby, do that conga. No, you can't control yourself any longer. Come on, shake your body, baby, do that conga.
I grew up near Laguna Beach, California. So whenever I get a chance, I love to come home.
Every tree that ever grew knew just which way to grow. And every bird that ever flew knew just which way to go.
It always amazes me how quickly my kids are growing and all of the new things they're learning.
And this is my story.
One thing that really stuck with me from my tour is that music has a profound power. Louis Armstrong showed us that. And today, doctors are finding that music is a powerful tool to help kids with autism. As a 5-year-old, Reed Moriarty had trouble connecting with anyone. Learning to sing opened up his world. Today, when Reed sings and plays piano, he helps other kids with autism connect. Why do you like to write songs?
Because writing songs makes me feel awesome inside.
How do you think it makes everybody else feel?
I think happy.
Can you guys say, hey, hey? Hey, hey? Nice.
Words are a challenge for children with autism. They often find music easier to understand because music is processed by a different region of the brain.
Long old troublesome road, and I'm looking for somebody come and help me carry this load. Hey, hey, said I need $1, $, that's what I need. Hey, hey, well I need $1, $, that's what I need. Hey, hey.
After his tour, Allo was invited to perform in Washington, D.C.
And I'll pay homage to another of my heroes, Louis Armstrong.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky,
are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I never knew. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Centuries of emigration have given us a wonderful gift. This wild intersection of cultures sparks enormous creative energy. We push ourselves in search of that blue note that sounds just a little bit better. In his later years, Lewis was sent on goodwill missions as America's ambassador to the world. In the Congo, he was lifted onto shoulders like a king.
I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you.
Where would the world be without jazz or rock and roll? American music now belongs to everyone. It has the power to inspire dreams and change our hearts.
What a wonderful
I hear babies cry, I watch them grow, they'll learn much more than I never knew. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes.
And I think to myself, what a wonderful Every tree that ever grew knew just which way to grow. And every bird that ever flew knew just which way to go. I count all of the people I call best friends on one hand. Being someone people count on, well, that's how I became a man. This is my story, the life that I have found. This is my story. It's a true story. Good times and a sorrow, a brand new old story. Yesterday and tomorrow, this is my story.